Finally, a win in Cleveland, just how the Bengals drew it up. Mike Petraglia inside Huntington Bank Field. Here on Sunday afternoon, the Bengals finally get their win in Cleveland. 21-14 was the final score. It wasn't always pretty, but the important thing is the Bengals improved to 1-1 in the AFC North, 3-4 overall. They can pull back to 500 next week with a win at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. You knew from the opening kickoff this afternoon was going to be a little bit different for the Stripes in Cleveland. Why? Because Charlie Jones took the opening kickoff 100 yards for a touchdown. 12 seconds in, the Bengals had their first lead in this building since 2019. That's really hard to believe. Bengals hadn't scored any points in the first half of their last two games in 2023 and 2022, and all of that came off the board here with that opening kickoff return for a touchdown by Charlie Jones. The story behind that kickoff return, when Charlie Jones took the field, he was the only returner deep for Cincinnati. Then it was the up man, Drew Sample, set in place to provide a key block that opened the seam for Charlie Jones to really go up the right sideline and then dance his way down the right sideline. He had to use all of his athleticism to finish out the final 5 yards as he toe-tapped along the right sideline and then leaped at the pylon, eventually making it in, staying in bounds all the while, and it was just the boost that the Bengals needed. Now, that play was drawn up by special teams coordinator Darren Simmons. After the game, Charlie Jones said that was just the way Darren Simmons drew it up, and that is exactly the kind of explosive play the Bengals had been looking for from their special teams. Sunday here in Cleveland, a 21-14 win was all about complementary football. In the first half, it was special teams. It was also defense. The Bengals holding the Cleveland Browns off the scoreboard until late in the second quarter when starting quarterback Deshaun Watson went out with an injury, but the Browns still managed to punch it in for a touchdown. Nick Chubb came back from injury, first game of the year. He ran it in from 1 yard out, but the Browns missed the extra point, so the Bengals never relinquished the lead in this game. Second half, Joe Burrow finally got things going after only throwing for 83 yards in the first half. He had touchdowns of 18 yards to Jamar Chase, who broke off a route and played a go ball to the corner of the end zone. That was the first offensive touchdown of the day. And then Joe Burrow, a beautiful pass on an in-cut to T. Higgins for 25 yards on 3rd and 4. That made it 21-6. The Browns did get a touchdown late in this contest to make it 21-14 as Jameis Winston came into the game as an emergency quarterback. The Browns had already lost two quarterbacks, including the starter, Deshaun Watson, to an Achilles injury. But Jameis Winston, the third quarterback, came in and threw a touchdown that made it 21-14. But just before that touchdown, a bit of scary news and a scary moment on the field for the Bengals as Geno Stone and Von Bell, their two starting safeties, collided violently over the middle on a short pass. And it was Von Bell eventually getting up, but Geno Stone had to be carted off with it appeared to be a brace on his lower left leg. After the game, he limped into the locker room. He was able to stand up, get off the cart under his own power, and head into the locker room. After the game, Zach Taylor said that may be some good news. It's not as bad as we initially thought on the field. Von Bell did stay in the game. Also, another injury note for the Bengals, Orlando Brown Jr. went out in the second quarter with a knee injury, a right knee injury. He was listed as questionable, downgraded to doubtful. He never did return. It was Cody Ford really holding up pretty well at left tackle for Orlando Brown Jr. Again, after the game, Zach Taylor didn't have much of an update, but they'll wait to see if it's going to be day-to-day. Significant that Orlando Brown Jr. returned to the Bengals sideline in full uniform for the second half, but he never got back into the game, so that could be a good sign for the Bengals going into next week against the Philadelphia Eagles at Paycor Stadium. Well, certainly Joe Burrow after the game said, again, the offense wasn't as sharp when we wanted it to be early, but we made the plays late, and we are now finally playing complementary football. The special teams touchdown, the couple of interceptions on the afternoon. One for Sam Hubbard, which happened to be his first career interception. Came with a broken pinky finger, he told us, on his right hand. Broken finger that he suffered in week number 2 at Kansas City. Geno Stone, before getting injured, he also had an interception late in the fourth quarter that helped close out this first Cincinnati win in Cleveland since 2017. So the Bengals win back-to-back games for the first time in 2024. They improved to 3-4 on the year. The Browns fall further into the AFC North basement. They are now 1-6. We'll have you covered on the X. Check that out for all of the locker room reaction and podium reaction from Zach Taylor and company. That's at Trags, Trags. My game recap is up on CLNSCincy with a Y.com. And of course, be sure to tune in for Skinny and myself as we will be on the Jungle Roar Skinny Bengals postgame pod very shortly. We'll have full analysis and recap from the locker room on that podcast. You can find it at youtube.com/@JungleRoarPod. Final again, the Bengals 21, the Browns 14. From Huntington Field in Cleveland, Mike Petraglia, CLNS Media.